Because I know adult people, they have more experience, life experience, and talking with them every time interesting. And because they have long life and long interesting, more different experience in life, during the life. And I like talking with adults. And I have a question for you. What's the favorite language for you?
It's a very interesting question. You know, I must say I don't really have a favorite language.
Yes.
When I say I've been trying to learn Korean, and Korean is quite difficult. But then if for example, I was listening on my little iPod, and I said, I'm tired of doing Korean, I'm going to do Czech. So I listened to Czech. And anytime I go back to an old friend, I find it lovely, I enjoy it, you know. Or now, at Link we put in, for the Japanese and the Chinese, we put in like pinyin or hiragana on top of the characters. Then I go back in and I look at Chinese and Japanese, and I like those languages. I like Spanish, Italian, Russian. Oh, I don't have a favorite language.
I accept that this response, because
yes.
I think languages like your kids. Some of them like baby, some of them maybe grow. They are your kids, like your different kids.
And sometimes you get tired of one of the kids because whatever, they're being a nuisance. But then if you haven't seen them for a day or two and you see them again, then of course it's, you know, you love them as much. It's the same with languages.
Yeah.
And you can get tired of a language. And then you go away from it, and when you come back, then I have no favorite languages.
Yeah,
and it's not only the language, it's whatever I'm doing in the language. If I'm listening to something about history or about, you know, maybe a story or something, it's everything that surrounds the language. They're all fascinating. Okay.
And what do you think about language and culture? What kind of real connection with language and culture?
Well, I mean, the culture. I mean, culture is the way people live, right? Basic. I mean, it's not buildings, it's not art, it's not any. It's the way people live. So within that, there's music and stuff, and people communicate in a language. So the language is just such an intimate part of the culture. And when I traveled now, I was in Asia, and I can't speak the language in Myanmar, and I can't speak the language in Vietnam. So I don't feel quite as comfortable. I can't really participate as much. I try a few words, but I can't. Whereas if I can speak, like when I was in Russia, met with people in St. Petersburg and in Moscow, and we were speaking Russian, and I've read and I listened to a lot of stuff about history, Russian history. So when I visit these places, the language is part of the culture. You can't. It's just part of it. Your ability, if you don't have the language, it's like being colorblind in looking at nature, or you know, it's not as intense. You can still enjoy the culture, like I enjoyed Myanmar and I enjoyed Vietnam. But if I can't speak the language, I feel somehow limited. So I think language is kind of like the window to the culture.
Yes, it's interesting, and I heard some quote about language. If you speak, two people speak, they use one language, and if you use his mother tongue language, you will be speak with heart, I can't remember who is this.
Vaguely, something. That's true. However, I mean, very often, like when I was in Korea, a lot of people want to speak English. So even though I speak Korean to them, they will come back in English. Sometimes their English is better than my Korean. Sometimes their English is not very good, but they still want to speak English, which is fine. Which is fine. So then I speak English. If the person wants to speak English, then I speak English. If the person wants to, so that's not a problem.
Because they want to practice English, and when they say for native speaker, they wanted to speak in English.
Of course, I do the same. If I see a Korean in Vancouver, well, if I hear some Korean, then I try to speak Korean to them. It's an opportunity, a real live Korean. Sometimes they're happy, sometimes they're not happy. So you have to be, you have to be a little careful. Like here, right now, I'm visiting in California, in the United States. Lots of Mexicans. And even if they speak with an accent, they don't necessarily like you to speak to them in Spanish. Because they're now American, they want to speak English.
Yeah.
Even though he's obviously Mexican and he speaks with an accent, I speak Spanish, but they may not appreciate when I speak to them in Spanish.
I think it's like in Kazakhstan too, same situation. If you speak Kazakh language, but some of Kazakh people, they speak only Russian language, use only Russian language, and they'll be speak in Russian. They'll be respond in Russian language.
Right.
Yes, and I'm bilingual. I speak Kazakh and Russian language. English is third,
right.
And Spanish fourth language. And for me,
right.
It's easy because I'm thinking in two languages, both languages,
right.
And for
right.
me it's easy. But many people don't know about that, and now I want to explain them. It's not so hard work learning language and being bilingual. And
right.
they have good place for making bilingual. Every person have good, how can I say, a place. It's the good place for being bilingual.
Yeah, you have an advantage because being bilingual, your brain is a little more flexible. Each person only has one language, so then they're very much sort of, it's not that they can't, but they have a tendency to stick to the one language. But once you have two different types of structures, two different types of sounds, and then a third one or a fourth one is not such a big deal. But for somebody who really only has one language,
yes.
It's partly, I think, attitude.
But I think they don't know this advantage.
No.
Yes, they don't know.
And they haven't had the feeling, they haven't had that sense of being able to speak in two or three languages. They haven't experienced it, so they don't have the confidence that they can do it.
Yeah, I'm so excited now this time, these 2 years. And my last question is about translate. For example, common phrase in language. If you translate another language, sometimes it's seem clumsy.
Yes.
Yes, and you need thinking language and use phrase. What is the phrase? Use native speakers. Yes, that's right. It's
absolutely. You can't translate phrases from your own language. You have to learn the phrase in the other language. And it's very common. You hear, for example, Russian speakers will use certain phrases in English which are a translation from Russian to Spanish speakers, German speakers. They'll always make the same mistake because they're translating from their own language. It's like in Japanese. If like in English, I think that Kazakhstan is a nice place. Я думаю, it's in Russian, same order. Я думаю, что the Japanese, they put the I think at the end. So when they speak English, they would say, Kazakhstan is a nice place, just I think. But when they're speaking English, they stick to Japanese word order. So they say, Kazakhstan is a nice place, I think. Instead of, in English or in Russian, we would tend to say, я думаю. We tend to have the verb in the front. Because in Russian, то убоимся. So, Kazakhstan is a nice place, just I think. So they follow their
Да, это получается...
You have to learn the phrasing in the other language.
Да, это получается, как будто они думают, не на самом деле это хорошее место, а они думают, да, в конце, если добавляют.
Я хочу сказать, что по-японски всегда
В конце.
глагол в конце
Предложение.
предложения. Поэтому, когда они говорят по-английски, они делают то же самое. Всегда глагол в конце предложения.
Да. Это очень как затрудняет язык, когда вот так говорят, когда вот так люди используют, да.
Да, поэтому надо научиться говорить, как говорят
Носители языка.
я забыл по-русски. Как говорят владельцы
Языка.
mother speaker.
Носители языка. Носители языка.
Языка. Да. Но это сложно. Надо много слушать и много читать.
О, да. Но для меня, конечно, хороший пример, хороший вдохновителем были вы. В первую очередь были вы. Когда я увидела вас, послушала, я же еще тогда не понимала по-английски. Я смотрела субтитры, я оттуда скопировала, брала в Google Translate, потом понимала, о, этот мужчина говорит правильно. Когда вы сказали, что возраст не имеет никакого значения для изучения языка, вот это слово, я вот так держала, все это, он сказал так.
Вы знаете, я сейчас почти 70 лет. У меня.
Да.
У меня почти 70 лет. Последние 10 лет я изучал более-менее или менее русский, корейский, румынский, португальский, украинский, чешский.
Да, о, вообще, вы вообще супергерой.
Я говорю с ошибками.
Ну и что?
У меня есть много недостаточностей. Это не важно. Это не важно. Совсем не важно. Я могу понимать, общаться, слушать, читать. И я имею большое удовольствие.
Да, вот это самое главное.
Да. Это последние 10 лет это фантастично, потому что я имел возможность не только изучать языки, но понимать, как эти люди, корейцы, русские, бразильские, как они думают, что их культуре. Я думаю, что когда мы немножко пожили, не старые люди, да, пожилые люди.
Да.
Это самый лучший пример для изучения языков.
Да.
Это очень хороший для мозгов.
Для мозгов очень хороший.
Не можем и конечно, не всегда есть возможность посетить эти страны, но мы можем узнать.
Да. Да, вот так общаться.
Очень. I get a great kick out of learning languages. You have to encourage your people. When they're older, that's the time to learn.
Yes, yes. And
This time.
yes. And we are understood people well, easier now, because we have age,
Yes.
and it's the good for contact people, for communication. We now easy for communicate people. Yes. For us,
And
it's easy talking with older, with younger, family male, different.
the other thing too is, I think when we're older, maybe we become better listeners.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Young people, they want to talk.
Yes.
Older people are more interested in listening.
Yes.
And listening is very important
Yeah.
in the language learning. Right?
Yes. And
Not so much talking.
yes, and we love have interest for other culture, and we more respect other people. And for youngs, they are like heroes. Oh, I'm my. They have more. How can I say? Egoism, and they have.
Which is normal.
And
Oh, I'm gonna have to go because my wife is waiting
yes.
with breakfast.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Привет передайте вашей жене, вашей семье.
Спасибо и до следующей встречи.
Будет возможность, еще поговорим. Спасибо большое.
Поговорим.
Ага.
Да. Пока.
До встречи. Спасибо.
До